Hi guys, this is Miranda. I want to share with you some of my ideas so far on my essay. Now this isn't the title. I guess it could be the title, but it's not, I don't think. How to Grow Old Without Fear. It could be, menopause, fear and loathing. It's probably closer to the mark. Or it could be called My Strange Friendship with Shirley. Originally, when I first thought of doing this, the idea was to contrast the role models I've had in my life for how to age as a woman. And this is my mother on the left and with my daughter about 10 years ago, and that's Shirley on the right. And you might think, well, why Shirley? Well, Shirley, it's complicated. At the time, 10 years ago, I was living in Ontario, and that's me at about the time I knew this is me with my two kids, around the time that this story takes place. And this is a picture of Shirley over here with my kids. You can see they're about the same age, and that's her boyfriend, Ted, who I guess I'd baked a birthday cake for. That's my house. But at the time, I really was kind of horrified by Shirley's life. Not Shirley herself, but the life she was living. It terrified me, and I didn't want anything to do with it. And I thought it just reinforced some really toxic ideas about aging and women for me. And now that I'm 10 years older, I don't think it's that simple. I think Shirley was living a lot more fearlessly than I could tell at the time. I was too naive, I was too young. But I want to unpack that. I want to figure out what messages are we getting and what do we do with them? Okay, so here, oops, sorry. Oh, I had some animations. That's okay. So if I tried to do a little visual of the kind of structure I want for this essay, and it's changed a little bit. Ultimately, the kernel of this piece is how hard it is to age as a woman, or how hard it is to age as this woman in this culture right now. And I thought there's three main threads that I want to bring into this. Number one is myths I tell myself about aging, what it means to age as a woman. And these are like projections. These are irrational fears. Maybe they're not irrational. They're fears. They're almost like, I see them as being almost dream sequences, almost like this alternate reality that I predict for myself. So there are those. Then there's the actual scientific truths about menopause. And I've been doing a lot of research about it. And there's so many things that we don't know about menopause. It just blows my mind, and so many inconsistencies. So I want to have some pretty hard science about aging in women. But I also want vignettes from my life with Shirley, because there are a few scenes that I remember really, really clearly that really affected me and formed some of my ideas. So how do I weave these three threads together? How do I make a blanket out of them? Well, oh, sorry. So how hard it is to age as a woman, but particularly a single woman. And now 10 years later, I'm single. And all of these fears, all this misinformation has been compounded. So really, I'm writing this essay for myself to help me come to terms with some of these ideas. But I think I'm not alone in having these fears. Okay, so that's kind of what I want to do. The struggle I've had over the last week is how to find style models. And the reason I struggled so hard is because I discovered this week how much I've always loved personal essays. And I didn't really think of myself as a nonfiction essay person, but when I look back on what I read and what I seek out and what I devour, it's very, very personal essays. I mean, it's the first thing I read in the New Yorker. It's the first thing I read in the Guardian. All these things that I read almost every day, they're personal essays. And I love them because of their intimacy. And for me, they're almost like just barfing up personal emotions and observations. And they're almost like, when I thought of it, I thought they were writing without structure almost, but whew, I was wrong. I've done a lot of reading over the last week. looking for some style models, and essays are all over the place. They're all over the place. What surprised me most, I think, this week is how I conflated literary journalism. No, I didn't conflate literary journalism with essays. I thought they were so separate, but I've read so many really great examples of essays that had a real, almost not didactic, but contained a lot of information, right? They're almost journalism, but they're too personal to be journalism. And I love that combination. I think it is my most happy place to be. So that said, what could I find that would help me weave those threads together? Well, I found this. I didn't find this. I read this last year. What I did is I didn't like troll the internet for essays. I went back to essays that had really stood out for me over the last few years. For some reason, I read this one last year, The Crane Woman, or The Crane Wife, and this was in the Paris Review last summer by C.J. Hauser. At the time, I don't know why I liked it so much. It's ostensibly about this woman who's trying to come to terms with a failed relationship and coming to terms with how she settled for so little, why she was willing to settle for so little in this relationship. And it takes place as she helps out some Crane researchers. This is the PDF I'm going to upload for you guys to read, so I don't want to spoil too much, but I just loved this piece. But I thought, it can't really help me with my work because I don't really see any structure. I included this quote. I think this is why I loved it so much, because these words, this is what it's about, and it really resonated with me. And she writes, "Even now I hear the words as shameful, thirsty, needy, the worst things a woman can be. Some days I still tell myself to take what is offered, because if it isn't enough, it is I who wants too much. I'm ashamed to be writing about this instead of writing about the whooping cranes or literal famines or any of the truer needs of the world." I mean, this quote kind of epitomizes why I have stuck to science, why I haven't written about myself, is because I felt ashamed. I felt like it's not important enough. Nobody cares enough. I have to be providing something. I can't be thinking about myself. Anyways, I think this really resonated with me, which is why I liked it a year ago. But when I went back to it this year, I kind of tried to see what structure was going on here, because for me, it was structureless. And it wasn't structureless. There's three main threads that she had, kind of like me. She had the bits about Crane research, not overly scientific, but just little bits about how Crane research is done. She had flashbacks to her relationship and how horrible it was. And then she used a few metaphors to really hammer home her predicament and her evolution, right? And her evolution towards truth, what's true about her, and affirmation that she did ask for too little. So that's the structure. But then I started picking it up, and it was all over the place. It wasn't these three little modules repeated over and over. It was all mixed together throughout the whole story. There was no visual cues of when we were moving in and out of sections. There was no sense of, there's nothing, just paragraphs flowing neatly into each other. And I never got lost, and I had never any doubt about where I was in the story. It's like, how the heck did she do this? And can I use this model for my piece? Now, she uses metaphor. I didn't plan on using metaphor, right? She uses this metaphor of these wild bush pigs in Texas, right? The moon, and most importantly, driving the boat at the end. So she has these three kind of really poignant metaphors that show her evolution in thought. And I don't want to do that, but I was wondering, her use of metaphor, could I use the way she uses metaphor, could I have my myths there? Could I just insert these myths to kind of highlight my own evolution? Maybe. I don't know if I'm evolving. That's the problem. I have to do more research. okay, so there's that. But at the same time, I wanted more scientific information than hers was really not. You don't learn almost, you learn almost nothing about cranes from this piece, like virtually nothing. And I want people to take away some more information about menopause because I feel like there's so much misinformation out there. And so I was reminded of this article from the New Yorker, Siddhartha Mukherjee. He is a physician and a writer, and he wrote this beautiful piece about his father's death and how it was to be kind of a physician but powerless as your father dies. But he was able to do something so remarkable. He has the hardest, most mundane science you can even think about it, but it's like feathers. It's like fluff. You don't, I mean, it's not putting it down. It's just like, look at this paragraph. He says, like, he talks about blood sodium levels, and you don't even know you're reading it. The speed of the unraveling was, well, breathtaking. He's talking about his dad. In that ICU ward, his sodium kept dropping precipitously, 131, 128, 122. His coma deepened from the imbalance of salts, and then his breathing dulled from the coma. Carbon dioxide and acid, when mixed in water, accumulated in his blood. I mean, there's some really dull, hard science in there, and yet I don't feel it. I just feel like it's compellingly part of the story. So I want to be able to do that with information on menopause. And I think it'll probably be easier because I'll be talking about, hormones and things that people relate to. I just thought this was such a good example of that. Okay, what else do I want to say? What's next? Well, to be honest, I'm not really sure if the myth fantasy thread is going to work for me. I couldn't find any good examples of that anywhere, like zero, like none. So if anybody knows of anything, please let me know. And I don't want to, I love the personal. I don't love the science per se, so I don't want to over science it. I don't think I will though, because I do love the personal. So I'm not sure how much science I need to add to it. Finally, I told you at the beginning it was supposed to be my mother and Shirley, but now I don't know if there's room for both of them. I don't know. And I don't know if I need them both. Anyways, this is where I am. Seems much, much, much messier than when I started. I'm a little bit freaked out about it, but that's what we're here for, right? All right, I'm gonna go upload this right now, and thanks for watching.